All right, let's try this volume thing again. Hopefully it's working. My mic is clearly on, and let me get into the audio. Well, hold on there. All right, how are we doing? Can you hear me? This is what I've seen StreamYard people do. Can you hear me? How's the audio? All right, looks like we have a signal. Okay. What's going on, everybody? We can eat good. All right. I'm glad you can hear me. We don't have to go through what we went through yesterday, which we did, and it seemed to be okay. It worked out. I wanted to throw a comment up here real quick before we get going. It's from Christina. Good morning. Energy is feeling intense. That's an understatement. That is an absolute understatement. Okay, we are now in like what the fuck territory. We are officially in Pluto in Aquarius. And I'm going to get into a lot of this over on 15 today. So the main focus on 15 is going to be Luigi Nick Mangione. I was up till about 2 a.m. last night trying to get as much gravy as I could on this guy. And the shit that is connected to him is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. We're talking hippity hop rabbit hole nuts. Okay, so I'm going to get into that in a big way over on 15. The other thing that this gets to your point, Christina, how weird the energy is. I don't know if you guys, this is one of the advantages of being on. So I don't have Twitter on my phone. A lot of times people will send me Twitter stuff via text message, and I don't have Twitter on my phone because if I did, it would be like crack. I'd be on it even more than I am. And but when I do get on Twitter on my computer, it's like I'm like a mole. I'm just burrowing through things. But if you are on Twitter, what you saw or would have seen over the last 24 hours is this image of this woman with this dumbfounded look on her face. She decided that she was going to have sex with 100 men in a 24-hour period. And men flew in from all over the place to have a go at this woman. And at the end, she's, you can tell she's shaken by the whole thing. Like what sounded like it would be pretty cool. And because there's this, thing going around on the internet, mostly TikTok, where women are into these body counts, right? They've like taken on the role of men, but it's worse in some ways. And it's these young women who are popularizing this idea that you could have random sex with as many men as you want to in a relatively short period of time. And this woman was with 100 men. And look, she's not a professional. I mean, there are professionals who do shit like this, right? Like for a professional, it's not a big deal. But for somebody who is trying to get some notches on their pistol, it is a very big deal. And I just thought about Pluto and Aquarius and how this really meets the profile of just like like when you think of Aquarius, you think of like group, right? So she's having like group sex, but one at a time. And the results are psychologically, I think, shattering for her. And so when you talk about the energy feeling intense, it's kind of like, I mean, this is also she's a Zoomer, right? Gen Z, and Gen Z has Pluto and Sagittarius, and Pluto is sex, right? It is sex energy, and Pluto will determine how a certain subgeneration will uh, process their sexual energy. When you go to the baby boomers, when they talk about sex, it's almost always in hand in glove with love. Right. The baby boomers are known for writing some of the greatest love songs of all time. And, where does love lead you? It leads you between the sheets, right? Sagittarius is more, 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 more. So you get Pluto in Sagittarius. What do you get? You get like just, pushing the limits. And as I've mentioned before with Sagittarius, it's an energy that's related to social reform and also personal reform, right? Like Sagittarians, once they've gone too far, they're the great social reformers. They'll take up the cause. And so I think that culturally there'll be some kind of backlash towards this random promiscuity, which is, now keep in mind, a lot of Gen Z is getting activated because they have Pluto and Sag, and Pluto's just gone into Aquarius. So the early Gen Zers are starting to get this Pluto, right? Sextile going on. And then Pluto is starting to conjunct Uranus and Neptune in their charts. So Gen Z is going to be just like plugged into a freaking wall socket here over the next 10 years with Pluto and Aquarius, right? It's very intense. So when you think of the energies feeling intense, the interaction of these two, and the guy he may be number 100, and he's like feeling her psychic fray, right? Like he's feeling it, and he's kind of shaking. Why? Because he's like picking up on the 99 other dudes that have already been there. And he's having to process that energy and her energy. And when you're young, when you're young and you're a guy, look, it's the drive can be very overwhelming. I'm just saying, right? But it doesn't mean that the individual is divorced from their emotional state. If you're a guy, these two things are not mutually exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive. And I remember just being driven when I was young, right? Being driven like, I've got to have sex. I've got to have sex. This is the thing, right? And then it happens, and I came to sex. Well, it wasn't like super late, but later than most people in their teens. I was still in my teens, but later than most people in my teens. And that was the goal, right? That was the prime directive. And after it was done, it was like I felt incredibly disconnected, like really disconnected. And part of me was like, well, this was great. I was able to achieve my goal. And then there was another part of me that was unaware that emotionally, there was a piece of the puzzle that I had not completely factored in. So I'm saying this because even though Hunter Guy showed up, right, with a sex drive that is generally consistent with young men, uh, a lot of them still have the emotional component that they're dealing with. And they have their own sort of, command control center around this whole thing. Um, but I just brought that up because it's the energy of the two people that they share at the end, which is it's not pretty, right? And it is very intense what they have experienced. And that's just like one little thread, right? One little, filament that's running through our collective experience now. Where do we start? You want to talk about Syria? We got into Syria yesterday on 15, and it's like we could spend an hour and a half, 2 hours on that thing easily. We've got all the crazy drone shit, right? We have the USO UAP stuff, which seems to be surfacing. Ryan shot me a text this morning. What do you think of this? Like a lot of it's happening in New Jersey. Jackie Delario, have you seen your drones today? There's that, right? There's just so much going on. Another $50 billion sent off to Ukraine. 50 billion. They're going to squeeze that lemon until there's nothing left. And Trump isn't even in the White House yet. So the energies are very intense. I'm with you. I am with you. All right, let's do a few greetings here, and then we'll jump into the weather. A lot to cover today. DJ MC, my man, he's in the house. We got a bow side. What's going on, Bo? Julie Sunshine 333. Maybe one of the first Chatarians to wish everyone a glorious day. Yes, thank you, Julie. And Chataria, you are well loved. You've created a beautiful chrysalis there. Brandy Herrera, 32 in Sin City. We got you by a couple of degrees here today. Barbara Boots is here, misbehaving too. Moonsprout, the aforementioned Christina, Susie G. This is a backup channel still dealing with defeating hackers. Susie, it's rough out there. I can attest to it. Lana Winkler's here. Hi, Lana. Let's see. Not used to typing on the phone either. Yeah. It's good the chat doesn't move too fast. If you're in a chat room on the phone, you better have bionic thumbs. Whit's here. What's happening, Whit? Checking in for Rui Dosa. Scott is here as well. Feeling prickly. Yeah, the prickly energy. Edith Prickly is here. Lynette Jardine, Jackie Delario. Downright nutty. It's been a payday bar out here. Steve Zarelith, Immortal. Who else do we have? Lisa Ann White, The Law. Yes, sign up over on Locals. Become a member. I'll be over there today. Jeff Rosen back in action. Good to see you, brother. Let's see. Son of the right hand, if thou doesn't well, shall thou not be acceptable. If thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. My sentiments exactly. Joan W's here. Moira's here. Neil Smith checking in from Chile, Wisconsin. Interstellar Cosmic Conversations with Patricia. My man Steve Thornton Doris here. Yes, if you want to. It is a cold morning here, and you can buy me a cup of coffee right there in lieu of a super chat. Proudly deplatformed since 2011, 2012. Sharon Lewis, she's here. Doug Rowe, 5x5. Yeah, so Jeff Rosen, he's getting the full dose of Pluto. in Aquarius. Don't forget that the like and subscribe. Please do that. That's also very helpful for the algorithm. Harry Bowie's in the house. Hey. Maya Rose, Queen Lisa, Valeria Rubens. We got a full house today. Yes, if you're interested in a reading, there you go. Amy Gill's here, Perspectivized. Oh, yes, indeed. We're going to get into it. The deep Pelosi ties with Mr. Luigi Nicholas Mangione. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. You guys are sharp. You guys are tack sharp. Let's get into the weather. Okay. Yep. Mars is still in its retreat. We've got 6 degrees before it moves back into Cancer. That is such a wintry kind of transit, isn't it? Right? Mars, the chariot, moving forward, but no, not now. It's moving backwards. It's burrowing in. It's I was almost going to say it's locking down, but you never know. You want to add to the weird. Been hearing about Ebola cases in New York. I wonder how much doom we could sip on in a 20-minute stretch. You have to release the doom a little at a time, just a little at a time. Venus clearly again in Aquarius, right? Getting closer to that Venus-Mars opposition. Man, this is a very powerful opposition, right? Fixed sign. And then tomorrow, the moon will move into Taurus, and we're going to have a T-square with that moon and Venus and Mars. So, man, that's such a weird, like, combo platter. You know, Venus and Aquarius, everybody gets a medal. Everybody gets a medal with Venus and Aquarius. Everybody's equal. Everybody is balanced and fair, and it's all the same, right? Theoretically, friendship, agape over romance, passion, and love. A couple of things you want to just factor in there with Venus and Aquarius. And then here you have smoldering Mars in Leo, like a star that's falling, right? It's like this hot star that's falling to Earth. And they're going to meet each other, right? They're going to meet each other much more closer. Today, we're almost at 5 degrees. It's at 4:59. So by tomorrow, Venus is going to be in exact opposition with Mars, and that moon will be somewhere around 12, right around 12 Taurus. And the moon in Taurus, man, it's very sensual. It's very earthy, right? It's very, very earthy. But the square with Venus it's chilly, man. It's just like it's like a chilly square. But the moon in Taurus wants comfort, and it wants to snuggle, right? It wants flesh on flesh, and kind of being under a bearskin rug. I mean, that's like the moon in Taurus, especially in the northern hemisphere, and the Venus squaring that moon. It's like whoever you're with doesn't want to do it. They're who's colder, the people you're with or the temperature outside? And then you've got that smoldering square with the moon and Mars. Mars is moving backwards. It's almost like it's trying to recapture something here. Tomorrow's one. We're not quite there yet. Even though the moon is at 26, it's in Aries, and it is part of the T-square. It really kicks in tomorrow. And there is a definite sense that people are trying to recapture something, right? It could be on a personal level with relationship and intimacy, maybe feelings that you've had, right? And that Moon Mars square that's prickly. It's another version of prickly, and it can be very passionate. Like if you got a Moon Mars square in your chart, like you run hot, squaring it up. But this is all fixed sign stuff too. Again, we're talking tomorrow. We're not talking today, but I mean, the moon is there. So the catalyst for all of it is today, because the moon is in Aries. And, Aries is a cardinal sign. So we're talking about catalyzing and putting things into motion, where tomorrow there is a high degree of tension. The other thing too, with this moon, and this is entering into the realm of like the holidays and spending and everything that goes along with that. There's just not a lot of money on the table. There's not a lot of money on the table. There's not a lot of gravy in that boat. And that can lead people to experiencing a tremendous amount of frustration. And I personally, I think that there's way too many expectations with Christmas. Way too many expectations. When I was I wasn't a young parent, but when I was a parent and my kid was young, I was like toying with the idea of, hey, we need to retool this whole Christmas thing for him. I was ready to sacrifice Christmas, because there's just so much around it that's like heavy and has so much baggage associated with it. And of course, my ex-wife was like, she was the I would tradition. She's a secularist, or she was. I don't know if she is now. She was a secularist, and the religion was tradition, right? Like tradition. You do these things during this time, during the holidays. On Thanksgiving, you watch the Thanksgiving Day parade. No, you watch the Detroit Lions. No, you watch the Thanksgiving Day parade from start to finish. And you sit down and you watch that parade with our son. Okay. This was before the days of DVRs. But there's just so much baggage around Christmas. And there's a lot of people who they just don't have any gas in the tank. And so much, it's a burden of expectations. I got to get this gift and that gift and this gift and that gift and this gift and that gift. And people just don't have the cash. And so this moon coming in Taurus, which is very materialistic, right? And to me, it's just very also frustrating from a material perspective. So yeah, there's the personal side of things, but there's also, I would say, just based on this aspect, that today, tomorrow, and even into Friday, we hit some peak holiday tension. Peak holiday tension. And my feeling is that this holiday, we're going to have a very clear divide between the haves and the have-nots. And I don't know what that looks like. But I know what it feels like. And I think people are going to have a sense of that. Like, oh, there is a world where there are people who have all these things at their disposal, and this is their life. And 90% of us are struggling, right? That's my feeling. So the next couple days, the other thing too, watch out for theft over the next 48 hours. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Monday night, the Cincinnati Bengals were in Dallas and they were playing the Cowboys. And the quarterback for the Bengals, Joe Burrow, who is actually a very good quarterback, had his house robbed back in Ohio. Not the first football player that this has happened to. Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. There may be a couple of others. And the MO is that these football players go on the road and they leave their house or burglar alarm or whatever, right? And people come in while they're playing a road game. And Joe Burrow has been known to wear bling. He's a bling guy. He got robbed on Monday night. So keep an eye out for stories around theft over the next 48 hours. And if you have valuables, it's always good to protect them. So I really feel like this materiality thing, whether it's the materiality of the body and intimacy and heat, and then it sort of bleeds over into this kind of seasonal thing, right? It's really fun notice. And these are hard aspects, really, really hard aspects. And the challenge here is not so much today, but tonight and tomorrow is the fixed sign aspect, and people just not moving off of their position. That's part of it. And then the frustration of not moving off the position. And then nobody wants to be the person to back down. So as we head into this holiday season, not the greatest energy. Even Jupiter, expansive Jupiter in Gemini, so it's in detriment and it's retrograde. So if you're going to go into the holiday thing, if you're going to do it, my suggestion is get a lot of small things, right? Get a lot of small things. If you're gonna go that route, but that's probably the right way to go. Because people feel like they're getting a lot. Oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. But, try to get small quality. That's what I would do. Small but quality. And there's a tension because the sun in Sagittarius wants to go big, right? It's like go big or go home. And I just don't think there's any fuel in the tank. Let's talk about this Sun-Neptune square. It feels very delusional, right? Like if we were going to have a mass hallucination, it would happen with the sun in Sagittarius squaring Neptune in Pisces, with that sun being, right there at the galactic center. So where are we? Today's the 11th. Circle the 18th. Let's go with the 14th. The 14th through the 18th. That 4-day period, right? Sun Neptune square mass hallucination. Like what's real? What's real? Good luck. Good luck with that. We're entering into that territory. But the closer it gets into that square, the harder it is. And there's a lot of coping going on. And people do strange things to cope with a reality that seems to be fraying at the edges. Remember, when we get into Neptune squares, we start to get into the realm of addiction. All right, we got Mercury retrograde. That's going to be resolving itself fairly soon here. And it's still in square with Saturn, and it's also in opposition with Neptune. We got another T square. It's T square city. Look at all this. And we still have that the Mars Pluto opposition. That's coming our way. This is not the jolliest of holidays. I can tell you that right now. I guess the saving grace here, to some degree, would be the Sun Chiron trine. You know, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not be perfect. And we have a Sun Moon trine today. So, I mean, I think that there is some good cheer or good spirit. Like, you get into a Sun Moon trine, I don't care what time of year it is, but you'll still get it, right? You'll still have some of that good feeling that comes with fire signs. You know, it's nice, especially during the wintertime. So catch it while you can, because tomorrow we have this continuation of the T square, but it definitely changes. Definitely changes. I would also look, and I know a lot of you who listen and watch, you guys are, you're fairly enlightened people. And it doesn't mean that we're perfect, but you're fairly enlightened. And if we make mistakes, which we all do, I think there's enough like self possession and discernment and reflection to know that you've kind of fucked up. Right. And so what happens when you fucked up? You do your best to course correct quickly, and then you move on. Right. That is the sign of an individual who is healthy, because they know, number one, they made an error. Number two, with enough self-reflection, they don't have a problem correcting the error, whatever that error is. Not everybody's like that. Not everybody is like that. Right. And it just feels like there's such a squabble with this T square around money. And it's one of these things that spills over into how everybody else kind of does their business, right? Because we're all connected. And that moon is going to come in, and it's going to square Pluto as well. And there's a sense of desperation here. So that's why I say be on the lookout for theft, robbery, all that stuff. I think it's through the roof over the next 72 hours. And I also feel like certain relationships, if you are having money issues, the next 24 hours are going to be rough sledding. So, but we get through these things, right? We get through them. All right. We do have a Mercury Mars trine. Let's end on a positive note. Mercury Mars trine. Mercury's retrograde. Again, you're going backwards to get things done, and you can get some good momentum. Like, I started to do some of that stuff yesterday. I've been in this house for a year, and my room is fine, but it's like, I'm not really, like, you got to be inspired with your environment. You know what I mean? And the side of my room is not that inspiring. So Mercury retrograde, trine Mars. It's like, let me take a look at this motherfucker. I gotta redo this thing. So I started that yesterday, right? So there's some of that energy going on, and that's you get excited about. Sort of like, yeah, I'm getting excited about it, right? Like, look, it's not the holy fucking grail, but there are things we need to at times feel excited about. So find some of that. And again, it's usually looking at how can I redo this? Right? How can I redo this? Here, let me show you something I redid last night. This is kind of funny. It's totally off topic. But so there's a guy I follow on Twitter. I really like this dude. I've never met him, but he seems like really solid, really solid. And I think he's a Catholic. Uh, I don't. Most of the time, I don't hold people's religion against them, unless it comes with a high dose of superiority. In which case, we have to have another discussion about it. Anyway, he was talking about how the state of Illinois is redoing their flag, like the flag of the state, right? They're redoing it. This is something that's happening with other states. I've been noticing this. Like, well, if we can't redo the flag of the United States, well, let's redo the state flags. Minnesota did it, and they're all lame. They're all corporate and lame looking. So he was complaining about the state flag, and I decided to redo the Illinois state flag last night. So there it is. Now this is dark blue, right, and this is red, and here we have the state of Illinois. And if you're a baseball fan or a Cubs fan, you'll know that this is Steve Bartman. This is Steve Bartman, who is, I think, the symbol for Chicago and the state of Illinois. See, this is what you do when you're bored at about 12:30 in the morning and thinking that you can redo the Illinois state flag with a Mercury retrograde, trine Mars retrograde. Now, the cool thing about that flag is if you didn't know it was Steve Bartman, it could look like a hip hop guy or something. Do you know what I mean? That could go over pretty well in Chicago. All right. Let's get into the star of the day. And of course, it's the time for me to speak on our sponsor, True Hemp Science, right there. So what you do, you spend $100 more, type in 15MINS, and you will get a goodie bag with your order. And the goodie bag, I've never brought this up with Chris. But if you wanted to reach out and see if you could get a deal on a bunch of these as stocking stuffers, be a pretty good gift, right? You just hand these out to your friends, like Holy Communion. Just give it to them. Say, you'll thank me later, right? So True Hemp Science is where you can get a bulk order, $100 or more, type in 15MINS, and you'll get this and who knows what else Chris will throw in there as part of your little goodie bag selection. And then $150 more get you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money back guarantee. All right. Let's get into our star of the day. By the way, today is the birthday of the state of Indiana. How about that? Happy birthday, Indiana. And what's interesting is that one of Indiana's favorite sons, Larry Bird, is also a Sagittarius. So that works. Okay, here we go. Today's star of the day is none other than Rajneesh, also known as Osho. Where do I start here? Where do I start? First of all, this guy's very interesting. He's super interesting. From a number of different levels. Starts off as a professor of psychology in India. And he starts to study transcendentalism, right? The cultural tradition of India. Like what he is studying is like our version of, I don't know, the Western tradition of the Bible, right? Or in our own weird way, like the Calvinist work ethic. You know what I mean? It's like it's in fact it's even more deeply embedded in his world than it is in our world. So he starts to study this and he starts to have these breakthroughs. Of course, he does, yoga and all the things that go along with it. And he winds up quitting his job as a professor. I think there was some controversy around that too in his role as a professor. And he starts to be a teacher in Pune, India. And he starts giving these darshan talks, right? And he takes this kind of transcendentalist tradition and moves it into the modern world. Like Rajneesh is a guru for the times. And one of the things that he is unafraid of is this whole idea of the shadow and dealing with things like sex, right? Like people went to Pune because it was happening, right? It was happening. It was a scene. I'm going to play you something a little bit later. And if you wanted an ascetic lifestyle, there were other gurus for you. Remember, this is a Sagittarian guru. So the whole idea is to work through the excess, right? Rajneesh was very, very bright that way. And so, number one, he was able to gain a following because people in the West, remember, this is like in the 60s and the 70s, they wanted to express themselves. There were plenty of teachers around for the baby boomers and the hippie generation, but Rajneesh was the most visceral, right? He was in some ways, the most ecstatic. So let's look at his chart. And I've done his chart before. He's got this grand fire trine, Sun in Sagittarius right there, Ceres in Sagittarius, and that Sun trines Uranus. And here he's got reversals of fortune here eventually with Jupiter retrograde and Uranus retrograde. But he's got Jupiter trine Uranus and Jupiter trine the Sun, and the Sun. This is a grand fire trine. So when I was trying to find this clip, and I remember this was after the Ma Non Sheila documentary on Netflix. I remember going into the Rajneesh rabbit hole, right? And for days, I was just going through all these videos with Rajneesh. And there was this one I kept playing over and over and over and over and over again. It was like I could not stop watching this video. And it was black and white, pretty rudimentary video. And the camera is behind Rajneesh, who is on like a bit of a stage. And there are these women around him. And he has his finger on their third eye, right? And their countenance was like, they were having a hardcore Kundalini trip. I could tell you that right now. Like these women were in waves of ecstasy, right? And then he did this thing where he had this finger on this one woman's head, and he took his hand, right? Like this was here, and he took his other hand and he kept it there. And then he took his hand and he hit this other woman right in her third eye. And then she goes into these paroxysms of, you can just see her eyes roll back into her head. I'm like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And then there's this other woman kind of off in the corner, and she's like, doing this thing. And then the camera zooms out, and then you see all these people, and they are in this kind of wave of ecstatic dancing. And I'm like, you can't fake this shit. Like there's a there, right? Like he's tapping into something. Now, if you go back and you look at the 70s, Neptune goes into Sagittarius right around 72, 73. And Neptune eventually catches up, right, to his sun. So he has sun moving into Neptune moving into conjunction with the sun, trining Uranus, trining Jupiter. Like he is pulling things in, right? That Sun Jupiter trine is very fiery and very passionate, right? And that Jupiter Uranus trine there's a brilliance to it. There's this kind of improvisational brilliance to it. This guy's an outside the box thinker, totally outside the box thinker. And you could just see it, right? You see it happening. Even that true note in Aries, it's almost like, pure connection to source. And if you did his draconic chart, it would be exactly the same. It would be the exact same chart. So this is a kind of a rare instance where the persona, right, and the draconic chart are one and the same. And he's got Pisces on the midheaven. Of course, it's the mystic. It's the mystic path. It's the artistic path. And he's not perfect by any stretch, right? He's not perfect. He winds eventually when Neptune moves into Capricorn, and I went through all of this. I looked at when he gets kicked out of India. He's got to go to Germany for a while. Sends Ma Nan Sheila over to the United States, and then he follows her. They're living in New Jersey, and then they find this property in Oregon. Neptune, by that time, 1984, Neptune's in Capricorn. And that is the downfall of Rajneesh, right? Because Capricorn's all about materiality. And Neptune comes in here in this kind of peak moment where Neptune is floating around his sun and Ceres and engaged in this trine where, again, he's just like channeling the Godhead. He goes into this, deeply material state, right? Now, here's the weird part. Let me see if I can get it in here. He's Gemini rising. He has a brother. And I believe his brother is still alive. How do I explain this in about 5 minutes? So it was a Christmas time, and it was around 1991. And I was like off on this weird trip. I was working in Olympia, Washington, and I was waiting on tables. I had gone through about 3 weeks of doubles and triples for the holidays. And then I was off, right? Like I was done. And what I should have done is just gone on a plane and gone somewhere really sunny. But instead, I decided I was going to go drive to Montana, thinking, oh, well, I'll run into some good weather somewhere in Montana. It was so fucking cold. And I spent a night in Spokane. In fact, I spent Christmas Eve in Spokane, Washington. And it was at this B&B. And I'm B&B, this is not like Airbnb. I'm like in somebody's home. It's a big house. I found the ad somewhere in local paper. I don't know how I found it, right? But they were cool people. And I got up the next morning. Their family was in town for Christmas. I'm sitting down. I'm having breakfast. And this woman's family is from Antelope, Oregon. And we talked about Rajneesh. And she said that it was clear to them that his brother was playing the role of Rajneesh when they were there. Because remember, Rajneesh took a vow of silence. He didn't say anything. And if his brother opened his mouth, then the brother would not have anything even remotely close to Rajneesh. Gemini rising, right? And so the idea was that the brother was playing Rajneesh, and then Ma Anand Sheila was running a huge operation through Rajneesh Param that included things like drugs, weapons. There was this guy, Alex Constantine. He did like a 10-part series in the Oregonian, breaking everything down. Like what was going on in Rajneesh Param was heavy. And Ma Anand Sheila's husband was, I think, at one point in time, worked for the World Bank, right? Like there was like so much going on there. And then you have Rajneesh with all of his Rolls Royces and Neptune going through all of his Capricorn planets. He loses the plot, right? And look at Mars. Here's the other thing with Mars. He's got Mars in Capricorn, which is powerful. Trine Neptune, creative, powerful. Venus trine Neptune, Moon trine Neptune. These are all deeply mystical components. Neptune in the 4th house. He lives in an ashram, right? But the other thing with Mars in the 7th house is that in relationship, if you're a man and you have Mars in the 7th house, there's a really good chance you are going to somehow partner with a very powerful woman, a very strong woman. And that's who Ma Anand Sheila turned out to be, right? She was his Mars and she took over. She took the operation over. Anyway, fascinating chart. Not a lot of air in there, right? So not a lot of, he's got Gemini in the ascendant, which is pretty airy. But not a lot of air in that chart. So the ability to self-reflect is going to be kind of, if you have a certain amount of air in your chart, you can be more objective. That is the nature of air. All right, let me play you a little clip here. This is from, we got about 7 minutes. This is from the ashram. And this is, you can tell also that they're at the beginning of rave culture with this video. And when you see this and hear this, you'll know what I'm talking about. So here we go. So there you go. There's a lot more here. We got some interviews. Like there's plenty of footage here if you want to dive a little bit deeper. But man, you can just tell, right? Like that's the beginning of the trance dance scene right there. All right, I guess we got a birthday. It's Janine's birthday. So let's do this. Let me see. How much time do we have left? I gotta find a good one. But I'm in a mood. All right. Here you go, Janine. Here you go, Janine. We're staying in the same part of the world here. Same part of the world. Same sort of genre. This goes out to our good friend Janine. Right here. Here you go, Janine.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
All right. Would have loved a little bit more of that. Oh, here's the other part. We got another part to it. Hold on. Oh, I would have loved a little bit more of that. Well, I can get a little more of that. I have a second slice of that cake. Here we go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
There you go. There you go. All right. And for everybody else out there having a birthday today, happy birthday. May it be your best day ever, but not your last. All right. Take good care. Treat each other well. God bless. Bye for now.